afternoon, actually. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. I know I did. Actually, I had a high weekend. But like you guys, I hope you guys were able to watch this fight last night. I'm in my bedroom now. I gotta just trying to make sure that the channel, I mean that the video is uploaded because my computer is all fucked up. Not my computer, but my laptop's fucked up, and I gotta do this shit off my phone. So it's my first time doing it. But I hope you guys, like I said, had a wonderful um weekend. If you allow me to go downstairs. Now you guys got the impromptu tour of half the house. But like I said, I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, and I hope you guys watched this fight. More importantly, I hope you guys didn't pay for the fight. But if you did, I mean, it's water under the bridge. Um, but before I even go into that though, for those of you that did pay for this fight, like I mean, like it wasn't a bad buy because it was actually a really good night of boxing. Like the undercards were pretty lit up. The action, I started watching the fight on YouTube like when the undercard was happening. That kid Brandon Lee's pretty good. Stanionis, you know, and I'm gonna talk about the Stanionis fight after the fact. Not the fight, I mean, like, but more so what the implicate. I mean, what that means for Bud Crawford and Errol Spence fighting next. But moving on to the crux of the match. I mean, or the crux of the evening. The Dennis Ugas Errol Spence fight. I mean, it was a good fight. The it was action throughout. I mean, minus like the first round, which always happens, like where fighters are feeling each other out. But it was action throughout the matchup. The I thought that Errol Spence was winning most of the rounds. I mean, maybe I gave a round to Ugas. I don't really remember because I wasn't grading like that, and I was watching it from my phone because I ain't pay for it. Not from directly from my phone, but my phone projected onto the TV. But it was that fight was really good. I mean, granted, I mean a lot of the channels that I like listen to, like that maybe were hyping up the fact that Ugas could win this fight. A lot of them really don't like Errol Spence, and I don't like Errol Spence that much either. But I didn't think that Ugas was gonna win this fight. I mean, to me, Ugas. I mean, he's not a light hitter. Like so, he just doesn't. To me, he didn't do anything like really well, like before this fight. So I didn't have a lot of hopes in him beating Errol Spence, and I didn't want to beat Errol Spence either. As much as I give Errol Spence shit, but I didn't want him to lose this fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, but going into it, like there wasn't a lot of allure for me. I mean, it's boxing, so there's always that possibility. Ugas isn't like a bum like that. He's more to me like a B plus fighter in this era. But then again, I had Porter at his best, like as a B plus fighter. You know what I'm saying? Like, and no, he wasn't a B plus fighter the night he fought Crawford. In my eyes, I mean, he was probably he wasn't peak, is what I'm saying, when he fought Crawford. But having said all that, even though I don't rate Ugas that highly, there was that a little bit of a outside suspense in the sense that the possibility of a long layoff coming back to bite Errol Spence. It really didn't. The possibility of the eye injury resurfacing, seemingly it did it, but I'll get to that in a minute, like too, because I initially thought that there was something to that during the fight last night. As far as and then it's a hometown fight for Spence. There was always a history of like Texas being a little bit of a shady place to fight for non-Mexican fighters, for non-Texans. some people like on the channels that I listen to, again, most of them don't really like Errol Spence that much, but they were saying that there was some cheating because like by the ref getting in the way. That was more like a weird situation initially, and I'll get to that. Because what happened was that Ugas did catch Errol Spence with a kind of like a blind shot in a sense. Like he was kind of like rotating and he caught Errol Spence in the jaw, which caused Errol Spence to lose his mouthpiece. Within that exchange, like the ref got in the way and Ugas ended up hitting Errol Spence, I believe, two more times, which made Errol Spence go into the ropes. I thought it was a little bit. I thought it could have been ruled a knockout. The more salacious part to that was that the at the end of that exchange, once Errol Spence went into the ropes, that the referee got in the way and then called time and then gave Errol Spence the opportunity to reinsert his mouthpiece. I thought that was more stupid. I've seen that ref in other fights too. He is kind of an idiot. Uh, a lot of the times that they were calling low blows on Errol Spence and on Ugas, I thought they were like unwarranted. Like, honestly, I don't care if people are warning a fighter to pick up their punches. Most times you don't got to stop the fighter in those instances. Most times I wouldn't even stop a fighter unless it's like obvious. You know what I'm saying? Like or like if the affected party was affected by the fight. I mean by a low blow. Didn't see that like so. I didn't see a lot of reasons as to why he was inserting himself to a degree, like into and calling and giving like warnings and shit regarding like low blows. But I mean, the ref didn't do a fantastic job, but I don't think the ref played a part into like or he didn't have like. I think a lot of people thought that he gave Errol Spence an assist in that sense. I mean, you could argue that, but Ugas didn't jump on him. Like Ugas didn't jump on a guy that he saw hurt in front of him that went into the ropes. That maybe if you thought the ropes supported him up and knocked him down, like why not jump on him and take him out? Like he didn't have the ability to defend himself, so to say, or he didn't have the ability to hit you back at least for a brief second or a brief couple of minutes. The fact that he didn't get Errol Spence out of there is 100% on Ugas, regardless of whether the referee stepped into into let Errol sort of recover by letting his corner reinsert his mouthpiece, so to say. But then again, I mean, like there were a lot of other times. Like I thought that Ugas had Errol Spence hurt a few times, like especially with the body attack, but he didn't really keep going back there, but there were a few times that he caught Errol to the body, which gave Errol a pause. But honestly, I didn't look at that like, oh shit, like it's like that's a product of Errol being weak in the body. No, because like at the end of the day, like when you have a high work rate like that, if Errol was picking his shots and pop shotting here and there like Ugas was doing, and then he gets hurt to the body in the midst of that, then yeah, I'd say that Errol his punch resistance wasn't as was deflated to a degree. And I do think that Errol Spence did lose a little bit of punch resistance, or is losing a little bit of punch resistance, as evidenced by this fight. But he wasn't like hurt like that in my eyes. And again, like if Ugas didn't take advantage of that situation, I mean, what's the point? But one thing that I will say is that when a fighter is putting out like that much offense, like Errol Spence was doing last night, and you get caught in the body like with a bit of a pop shot and it slows you down for a second, that's not because Errol punch resistance has evaporated, though I think he did lose some punch resistance. No, I don't think that, but that's not because Errol can't take a punch any longer. I think that like in the midst of like you putting out like a ton of offense, you get a little bit gassed out and you get caught with a shot. maybe in best case scenario, it stops you for a few seconds, like from throwing out offense. Worst case scenario, you're legitimately hurt. I mean, was he legitimately hurt? I mean, he had a good poker face. Um, but I didn't take it as that. I just thought that it was just a brief respite from a respite from putting out a ton of offense. But Errol Spence was putting out a ton of offense in this fight. One thing that wasn't talked about a whole lot, I think Errol Spence in this fight wasn't looking to go with the left hook to the body as much early on, and I think that kind of helped him. I think it helped him like to set that punch up later on in the fight, and in addition to that, he was lacing Ugas with the uppercut as well. And this wasn't like when Ugas was out of there in essence, or when he couldn't see from that right eye. No, he was. To me, that's kind of like what made like what took the fight out of Ugas is the fact that Errol Spence was featuring that uppercut, his best punch of this fight yesterday, and it was catching Ugas big time. The eye didn't help Ugas in trying to avoid the uppercut, and Ugas kind of like going with the high guard up close and standing face to face also didn't help. But it was good to see Errol Spence adding on to his game and putting that uppercut into great use. I mean, to me, his uppercut looks better than his left hook. I mean, granted, it's a small sample size. Another thing, I've said in the past that Danny Garcia's fight against Errol Spence was Errol Spence's best performance in my eyes. Granted, like Danny Garcia is not known for like foot movement. Danny Garcia could get loopy at times with his shots, but Errol Spence's output in the Danny Garcia fight was the same from round 1 to round 12. And Errol Spence was moving around in that fight better than he's ever moved around in any other fight. So to me, that was his finest performance. Granted, it's coming off a Danny Garcia who's hadn't really done nothing at welterweight and was in a little bit of decline, but still, I mean, it wasn't really about what I saw with Danny Garcia. It was more what I saw with Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia, and I concluded back then that that was his finest fight. Well, this fight, I think Errol Spence looked better than that version of Errol Spence that fought against Danny Garcia. So to me, this was Errol Spence's finest performance. One, I mean, you could easily say that Ugas was a way better or way more of a threat than Danny Garcia was when Errol fought them respectively. But two, not only was Errol Spence moving around, I gave Errol Spence more credit in the Danny Garcia fight for his ability to move around so sharply from round 1 to 12. Again, that's not like a big feat doing it against Danny Garcia, but he still did it off of the accident, and he looked good doing it. Errol Spence had the same vigor from round 1 to 9 when they called it, but it was more of output with his fucking fist. Like he was putting out from round 2 on a fucking offensive display from hell. And he was beating the shit out of fucking Ugas. Like, I'll give him all the credit in the world. And it's not like Ugas doesn't have a chin or like is known for getting put out there like fucking or losing fights in that fashion. Well, yesterday was different. And it was different because of the guy who was in the ring with him. So I give Errol Spence mad credit for this fight yesterday. I'm trying to think what else I want. What other things I saw in his game, but you know, it does. I think the nutrition thing that Errol Spence did mention, and what I've seen in that All Access, I think that it did have effect, and I saw that from the beginning of All Access because you figure that All Access is filmed. If they do 3 episodes, it's usually like a month out from the fight or 3 weeks out from the fight, and I could tell off the rip somebody that looks dried out, And Errol Spence, I mean, like the only sign I saw that was the fact that he was talking like kind of like draggy, like because you could tell like a fighter looks irritated or fucking sweaty when they're not supposed to be sweaty, like just talking like in all access, like when they do all access, like a lot of times if you bake weight off like in the sauna, like you'll start getting like cold sweats like out of nowhere, like you could be just chilling in the house or you could be outside like in the winter and like you'll get these like little 10 minutes of like fucking where you argue with somebody and or like where you get anxious or some shit while you're outside and fucking you'll just start sweating like fucking out of nowhere, like unnaturally it looks like. And sometimes you could even see that in some of these all access, like they just look like dehydrated, like veiny and all this shit. But I didn't see that in this all access. And when Errol Spence was warming, and one thing I do start to where I start to look for really fucked up methods of cutting weight is when a fight is warming up, like before a match, and Errol Spence looked perfect. I was like fucking I was like maybe my eyes are deceiving me, but leading up like or like behind when they were panning to the locker room, Errol Spence looked more than ready to go, and he didn't look like he added a bunch of fake weight after the weigh-in. Like I mean, he just looked to me perfect. Pause. But um, it was good to see. I mean, it was good to see him bite down the mouth guard and make a statement. You know, some people took Terrence Bud Crawford victory over Porter as a statement. I didn't because I mean like there was no expectation for me in my eyes for Porter to win. Um, was it good that he got Porter out of it? I mean, yeah. I mean, like the fact that like I mean honestly, it wasn't really a big deal that I thought I didn't think it was a huge deal that Porter got taken out of that match via KO. Like I had that expectation going into the match. What was a revelation was the fact that Bud's corner told him that he was down or that he may be down, and that Bud in the next round bites on his mouth guard and fucking and gets Sean Porter out of it. That to me was the statement. But if you would have told me in the following morning if I didn't see the fight, oh well, Bud Crawford knocked out Sean Porter in the 10th round or whatever the fuck it was, I would have not been too surprised. But Errol Spence knocking out or Dennis Ugas, I didn't have Errol Spence beating or Dennis Ugas by knockout. Maybe when they first announced this fight, I sort of thought that that was a possibility, but um, my bad, Dolomite, because I can't really see the comments that great, but I'm reading off my TV. It says, I'm glad the Ugas roadblock is out of the way. I'm just waiting to see what the next roadblock is going to be because there's no excuses now. Yeah, I think there is going to be a roadblock too, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. But thank you for coming through though, too, man. But and again, I would highlight your comment, but it's off my phone. I don't even know how to do that shit. But the you know, to me, it was a statement as far as him getting Ugas out of there via knockout, and honestly, it was a bigger statement, or getting Ugas beating the shit out of Ugas, especially in the latter portion of the fight. That to me was huge. Now, like now that we're done with that, like oh well, actually no. The reason I tuned in for this fight, more importantly, was to see if he was gonna call out Bud Crawford in the aftermath. Now, granted, some people this morning were making an issue that Bud Crawford wasn't in attendance, but I don't make an issue of it because the last time Bud Crawford attended a fight in the AT&T Stadium, I believe, a couple of homosexual Errol Spence fans were doing gay shit like, "Oh, this is Errol Spence City. You can't be in the crowd. This is Errol Spence City." And I mean, like, like fucking I don't take Bud Crawford as a pussy, but you're in some other town and like a bunch of fucking cornballs surround you. It's hard to do shit on a mob, even if you're strapped. I don't think he was strapped, but fucking but if you got like dudes mobbed up, like fucking and they're deep like that, like 20 deep or 30 deep in a big stadium, like God knows how many other people would jump in and start stepping on your face as you're knocked out on the floor. So I mean, like was he gonna do that shit in this fight? I mean, it would have been cool. I mean, I would have liked it. But and I'm not like one of these dudes that like, oh, I'm glad Errol Spence didn't show up to his fight. Who the fuck he thinks he is? Like, nah, bro. Like fucking I like Bud Crawford a little bit more than I do Errol Spence, but I ain't no fucking wifey of fucking Crawford. Like a lot of these dudes think that they're Errol Spence's wife, including those homosexuals that were in the crowd that night. So Bud's a family man. He ain't gonna show up with no fucking rowdy ass dudes, that think they're fucking they're bunkies with fucking Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? Or that would hold Errol Spence's pocket in public if given the opportunity. Nah, you can't really go into no fight like that, like fucking in attendance. And it's in Dallas. It's not like it's Las Vegas. Dallas is a you know well, no, at Las Vegas, a lot of those dudes that buy like ringside seats for Vegas fights, that's 10 racks. You know, or 5 racks at least. A lot of the times you see around the fight in Las Vegas, you see people clapping like this because they're fucking snotty, a lot of them, or they got bread, so they can't be like all fucking with their belly hanging out and like they're not those kind of fans. Like for the fight against Ugas and Errol Spence yesterday, not that I give a shit, but like I did look at what the tickets were going for prior to the fight, and it was like $400. You know what I'm saying? Like for ringside like sections, like not like right at the ringside, but like that lower tier, like where you're in the same section as the ringside dudes. But those are going for like 400 dents, and 400 dents. That's upper tier hood level dudes, but like those hood level dudes like are still the kind of dudes that would probably do some corny shit like that too. Like it's our city. You know what I'm saying? Like if had Terrence Bud Crawford been there, you know what I'm saying? And there were a couple like I think during the Stanionis fight, you saw I don't know what the fuck was happening, but there was a little brawlski happening like ringside, like real like where you could see it from the camera. There was like a bunch of dudes in red. I don't know if it was no gang shit, nothing like that. But it just looked like some ghetto-ness happening. And not that I'm fucking dissing ghetto, like fucking because I'm more ghetto than anybody watching this fucking video currently. And that's not like a badge of honor, but some people sometimes they see me enunciating, or they see that I live in an actual house and think that I'm fucking that I'm some dissing some hood shit. Nah, like fucking I'm officially from the fucking real ghetto, not no fucking hip hop ghetto or fuck or not no doing shit fucking the gram ghetto. Like nah, fucking section 8. One change of clothes or 2 changes of clothes year ghetto for the whole year ghetto. You know what I'm saying? But I say that to say that I giving at to what happened the last time that Bud Crawford went into Dallas on a night that wasn't even that Errol Spence wasn't even fighting. Um, and given how a lot of you know Errol's fan base could behave online, and God knows how they get down in person. Like these dudes be acting like they want to fucking like kill Bud Crawford. Like my man, like the why is that? Why the energy, bro? Like fuck, you know what I'm saying? Like another brother. Um, Shit wasn't even like popping like that when a lot of the same fan base of Errol Spence, who also were big time fans of Wilder, like I am. But they didn't get it like that. That kind of talk didn't go like for Anthony Joshua, like how they talk about Bud Crawford. Like these dudes be talking about him like he's a slave or some shit, like just dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? Like so I don't blame him for not going to the fight. But one thing that I am super pumped up about is the fact that Errol Spence did call out but Terrence Crawford within at the end of that fight. Um, I was more tuned in for that than I was for the fucking fight, to be frank. Um, like my man Dolomite said, it does get the. I did tune in also to see the Ugas hurdle finally cleared, but it was a big time bonus to at the end of the pay per view, which I didn't pay for, to see a call out by two of the biggest fighters. Like, and it's something that doesn't happen that often. There were many times that I fucking the fuck just dropped. There were many times that I paid for fucking legit paid for Mayweather's pay per views to see if to see if he would call out Pacquiao in like resounding fashion, and it wouldn't happen. Same shit with Pacquiao. There were a lot of times that I would tune into these Pacquiao fights to see if he would call out Mayweather, and it wouldn't happen. But to have Errol Spence call out Bud Crawford in such a fashion, which he hasn't done um, for the better part of a couple of years, I mean, I gotta give him props. Fucking that was fantastic to see. Um, One thing though, which did give me a little bit of pause too, is the fact that the Stanionis fight did happen before that. And Stanionis is a mandatory, I believe, for the WBA, I think. Um, One of the belts. Um, and then afterwards, you see a lot of dick hugging, like, or a lot of people that are important in the business, i.e., Shelly Finkel primarily, and Richard Schaefer. They're all like fucking hyper interested in the career of Stanionis at this current juncture. And to me, that looked like they see Stanionis as a really viable option in the short term, i.e., a really viable option to get in the way of Bud Crawford and Errol Spence fighting by becoming a mandatory for one of the belts that Errol Spence is currently holding. Um, that does give me a little bit of a concern. I mean, because even before this fight happened, there were rumors that Stanionis was gonna be in the way of things, like was gonna be mandatory for one of those belts prior to this fight. Um, the fact that he was sort of being highlighted within this card does give me a little pause because there's always that factor in my mind that Errol Spence does something else rather than fighting Bud Crawford, and the Stanionis mandatory quote unquote could be a really good excuse to go do some other shit rather than fighting Bud Crawford. That should be concerning to us fight fans. Now, I hope that this is just a mile marker that you just pass on by and no big deal. But if that's the excuse that comes up next, like for instance, in my eyes, like there's a complication because Stanionis is the mandatory, and Bud Crawford and Errol Spence can't fight next. I'd rather um, Errol Spence drops that belt and fight Bud Crawford, next. I get concerned that should Errol Spence defend that belt against Stanionis rather than fighting Bud Crawford, the obvious thing, I mean, is one that Errol Spence, there's a chance that he could lose. Stanionis does look better than I anticipated since that Delorme matchup. But more importantly, that I think that's a bullshit maneuver to even give that any sort of credence. But I think if he does that rather than fighting Bud Crawford next, and he takes on that Stanionis mandatory, that a lot of Errol Spence's nut hugging fan base, the extreme fan base of Errol Spence. This doesn't go to all of you. I don't got a problem with every Errol Spence fan, but the portion of his fan base that has talked Heymanomics for the better part of 3 or 4 years. That portion of his fan base that takes pride in the fact that Errol Spence set out and said he was gonna did what he was gonna do by getting all those belts. Like, I mean, yeah, it's an accomplishment, but it's not a bigger accomplishment than beating Bud Crawford. Collecting those 3 belts is not a big accomplishment than beating Bud Crawford. Everybody you collected a belt against was already beat, so it's not a big feat. Beating the undefeated guy who everybody thinks is the consensus pound for pound #1 fighter in the world would have been a big feat, whether he did it right after Kell Brook or whether he did it in 2019, 2020. It would have been a humongous feat. So a lot of people kind of like ran with the reasoning as if it was like some scripture or some shit. Well, he set out to get all the belts and that's what he did. No, because he fought Danny Garcia in that time too for no belt. So where was that in the history? You know, as far as in this grand story that Errol Spence has written for in you guys' eyes, like it's not a grand story to me. So I mean, like those same people that have ran with that excuse. Well, he set out to do what he was gonna do, and now he did it. But like Stanionis is a mandatory, and like fucking now he seems like he's gonna fight that fight. So he's not gonna lose the belts now. I mean, like what? Just give a belt up, So I don't want to hear any of that shit. Like no, like if that's the case, then fucking drop the belt. Oh, but dropping that belt, he's gonna get a bigger percent. Like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Cause like honestly, like this is never a tangible excuse to miss a great fight before. Like, come on, like guys, be serious. If fucking Mayweather would have said, I'm not gonna fight Pacquiao until I collect this belt, 1 belt, people would have been on his ass. Now, if he would have said, like, I won't fight Pacquiao unless it's for all the belts, that still would have been a lame ass excuse. And that's from 2 people that were at the top of all sports, not the top of boxing, of all sports. This is the biggest event in a lot of people's eyes in a decade in sports. Bigger than fucking might have competed with Boston winning in the championship in 2004, or the Cubs winning the championship, whenever the fuck they won. Pacquiao Mayweather was, I guess, leading up to it was way more anticipated than a lot of those events. I mean, granted, the fight was a dud, but had Pacquiao would have said, no, I gotta beat Marquez like fucking before I fight Mayweather, or had Mayweather said, no, I gotta chase the WBO belt now because I got 2 of them, that would have been whack. So I mean, it's even more whack at this stage to then say like, oh, I gotta defend the belt against Stanionis, and I can't fight Bud Crawford for that reason. Lose the fucking belt, rather than waiting on this fight more than we have to. At this stage, it should be December or earlier or bust for Bud Crawford and Errol Spence. And I'm not putting any blame off of Bud Crawford in this either. I think Bud Crawford has a lot of blame in this. I'm not going to say largely the blame. I think most of the blame falls on the PBC and Errol Spence. But this whole thing of Bud Crawford has to go fight 1 fight at PBC so that the PBC fan base knows him. That's fucking whack. Because the rumors are that if that happens, that's gonna be Danny Garcia. What the fuck do I gotta waste my time watching Bud Crawford fighting Danny Garcia? Please, if that should be no excuse. If that's the case, have Bud Crawford fight fucking Stanionis or some shit. That's not gonna happen. But fucking but actually no, that wouldn't work for me either. I don't want to see any other fight but fucking Bud Crawford against Errol Spence next. Fucking if a belt is potentially lost because Errol Spence doesn't fight a mandatory and fights Bud Crawford, who gives a fuck? If Bud Crawford loses his belt because he is not fulfilling a mandatory, even though he has fulfilled his mandatory, But if Bud Crawford is at the crux of losing his belt, like, and he loses his belt to say like Stanionis, that's not gonna happen because I like fucking But say that's the case, like what? And Errol Spence collects that belt by beating Stanionis. Like, is it gonna have that much luster? Absolutely not. I don't care if he's I mean, it does mean something that he is going to be unified in a cheesy way, but the belts at this stage do not make this fight. I mean, it does put a cherry on top that this fight is for all the belts, but it doesn't make or break this fight. So I say that to say that Stanionis or any other fucking mandatory should not get in the way of Bud Crawford and Errol Spence fighting next. And if that's the path that they want to go, and there's more on Errol Spence, if that's the path that he wants to go, then it's just as disappointing as any other thing that he's done, including running out of the stadium after the Bud Crawford beat Sean Porter, including saying this side of the street bullshit, like fucking including saying that Errol Spence or Bud Crawford was gonna get 20 or 30%, and that was all just a joke. After like 3 or 4 years, like fucking letting his fan base run with that storyline, to him a couple months ago or last month saying that he was just joking when he was talking about these purse splits as he was referring to Bud Crawford. Errol Spence fighting anybody but Bud Crawford next, and is a fucking massive letdown. Bud Crawford fighting anyone but Errol Spence next is a fucking massive letdown. Now, I don't want to see Bud Crawford signing with the PBC so that he could get a fucking feature fight on PBC, like with God knows who. I don't give a fuck. No. I don't care if he signs with PBC in the spirit of making this fight next. Yes, that's fantastic. I don't care if he signs with fucking Hitler to fight Errol Spence next. Do it. Like, enough with the bullshit, bro. Like, fucking, I mean, like, this card yesterday, imagine Bud Crawford and Errol Spence at the end of this card. We would have had a historic card. But now, like, right now, we have a bunch of cards that, like, fucking none of them, upon announcement, are pay-per-view worthy. And with a card like yesterday, where it was ended up being a lot of fantastic fights, it gets lost in the shuffle because people aren't watching it, or people don't care. People know that that's not the best fight that could be made right now. Bud Crawford versus Errol Spence, it deads all that talk because it is the best fight that could be made right now. In a sense, it is over marinated, but who gives a fuck? If we get the fight in 2022, then we have a chance of at least running it back again. And that's great. You know what I'm saying? Let's not marinate fights no more, because for some of you guys that have been around boxing YouTube, even, they when this fight was first being talked about, there were a lot of fans that even on Errol Spence nut hugger channels, or even on channels that were shitting on Errol Spence, like, back then, like, in 2019, let's say, I remember a lot of people saying that this fight's not gonna happen past 2020. You know what I'm saying? So for it to be 2022 now, and for this fight, best case scenario, to be happening at the end of 2022, let's just keep it at that. Let's not complicate the issue anymore. Bud Crawford don't have to fight anybody on PBC besides fucking Errol Spence. If he wants to fight Boots or some shit after he fights Errol Spence, fantastic. If you want to give him a fucking if you want to give Danny Garcia a paycheck for fucking God knows what reason, for him to take a beating from Errol Spence, from Bud Crawford in the aftermath, that's okay. But let's get this shit next. The only substitute fight I'll take from the PBC is Crawford versus Charlo. The rest of those names, besides Spence, are for the birds and don't mean anything. Yeah, I would take that match too, but I would take that match after. You know what I'm saying? Like fucking and like that, like the Crawford versus Charlo match. There is like some bad blood there. Like and I do want to see that fight. Don't get it twisted. But I don't want to see that fight being talked about before Errol Spence versus Bud. I don't want to see Errol Spence say that he got to take a light touch now because like fucking no, like fucking because like at the end of the day, like you know these dudes, Errol Spence to me has been taking medium to good opposition, and a lot of his diehard fan base will make it seem like Errol Spence has fucking it wasn't him that resurrected this Sunday. It was fucking or it wasn't Jesus that resurrected. It was Errol Spence. Errol Spence has been fucking slaying dragons, running into buildings, saving kids, like fucking he's about to kill fucking Putin like in Russia, like so I don't want to bail out into a tune-up fight for Errol Spence next and a bullshit fight for Bud Crawford because he has to Bud Crawford has to sign a 2-fight deal with PBC. To me, it would make sense if Bud did sign a 2-fight deal with PBC, but fought Errol Spence next and fought whoever the fuck afterwards. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it is gonna be an interesting couple set of months moving forward, but I mean, my advice, let's not let the fucking people that are gonna talk splits and all this shit too seriously. Because at the end of the day, like the people that have been talking splits and all this gay shit for a couple months, and it's usually in relation to like trying to expand upon a point that Errol Spence has made a couple of years ago. Errol Spence just told you that he was fucking around when he was talking these splits. So you know, or I'm talking to you, fucking whoever is Errol Spence apologist or a fucking hate on Bud Crawford for God knows what reason channel. You know, you should take yourself out of the way if you're gonna talk some split shit fucking come May or June, you know, just gracefully like fucking bow out, shut the fuck up, because every point that you've made for the past 3 years, your fucking lord and master or your husband, Errol Spence, has told you, just kidding. I was fucking around when I was saying all that shit. You made it your life, like fucking to make your channel into to only talk about that and try to use business that you don't know about, because it's pretty likely that you're either a manager at the butcher section of Costco or you have a small business detailing cars. So you're fucking telling me that I don't know business because fucking you're an Errol Spence fan and like or fucking some of the other corny shit that some of these channels say. Oh, a lot of these Bud Crawford fans in real life, they're beta males. You know what I'm saying? They're beta males. They were never popular. Like fuck, like, yeah. And you were very popular, or you're not a beta male, but you're on YouTube 100% of your life, or fucking crying over some dude. You know what I'm saying? Like fucking get out the way for these next couple months. If you fucking become a channel that just talks about like trying to make this fight, then in my eyes, all is forgiven, bro. I won't even look at that past shit. You know, that you've been spewing for the past 3 years. But if you get in the way of this fight happening next, you know, fucking either shut the fuck up and stay out the way, or, you know, fucking just get on the train of us boxing fans who want nothing more than to see the best fights. And this is the best fight. We don't want to see a good fight next. I don't want to see Danny Garcia versus Bud next. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm the biggest Danny Garcia fan going. Danny Garcia will get his fucking neck torn off his fucking spine fighting Bud Crawford. I don't need to see that shit. Not that I'm trying to protect Danny and fucking get him into the fray, like fucking down the line, like so he get a nice little paycheck from so. Like no, my job is not to fucking get Danny Garcia a fucking paycheck. No, my job because fucking I might die tomorrow and by getting hit by a fucking ice cream truck. Or some fucking stray bullet could come through that window in the suburbs of New Jersey, which is not likely to happen, but who the fuck knows? Or some fucking Zeta variant might come out and shut the shit down for 2 years. Like fucking nothing's guaranteed in this life. In essence, there was long layoff fucking for Errol Spence because of a car accident, because of the Ronies. The Roni virus fucking running around. Like there was a huge layoff. Like fucking and you guys act like we have all the time in the world. Like when you look at that number where it says age for Errol Spence last night, it was heading on to his mid-30s. Bud Crawford is thoroughly implanted in his mid-30s. We don't have a lot of time, people. Let's make this shit happen right now. You know, fucking before the age factor does start setting in, or before fucking Bud Crawford or Errol Spence gets hit by a fucking ice cream truck. Or fucking who the fuck knows? Like, you know, we don't want none of this dumb shit to happen. Like a lot of you guys that are like that are making it seem like we have all this time and like, oh yeah, well you gotta take this mandatory. Fucking you guys must have started watching boxing like in the past couple years because we don't have a lot of time. These dudes fight twice a year in the best of scenarios, right? At this juncture, like we don't got a lot of time to waste. Fucking believe me. But let me take off. Like fucking it's kind of annoying talking into the phone. I'm gonna try to get my laptop back. Like fucking and my bad I haven't got on to fucking do more videos lately, man. But it is a fucking legit pain in the ass. And I did tell you guys like fucking I've been taking care of this fucking kitten. I would go in there and show you, but my fucking bedroom's a mess. But in addition to that, like you guys know, I got injured a couple months ago, and in the beginning of that injury, I got a fucking puppy, which I should have not done, but because he's a lot of fucking work, and he's still a lot of work. So I mean, a lot of times I'm either taking care of the dog, fucking taking care of my fucking little cat who's mad cute, and fucking running around doing shit. I don't got the time for a lot of. Oh, actually, let me show you my dog though. I think I could flip the camera on the fucking since I'm recording off my phone. Bowser, Bow. He's pissed off. I gotta walk this motherfucker in a few minutes. Come on, Bow, come, Bowser. He's 10 months though. It's my little pride and joy, but he's a fucking dick, certified fucking dick. A lot of times, but he's very cute. He's not a dick like that though. Come, Bowser. See, and this motherfucker's smart too because every time I tell him to do something on command, he knows what the fuck I'm telling him and he won't do it. But if I walk away or some shit, like then he'd fucking he'd be all up in the video. But that's my my blessing. See, now this motherfucker comes. You see what I'm saying? Asshole. Come, Bowser. Bow. It's my dog Bowser. Citizen Bowser, you fucking cute little motherfucker. Yeah, but sorry, guys. I mean, like my content creating days are not gonna be as much until my until fucking I start feeling a little better. One, but at least until the kitten gets to a point where I could I don't gotta police him that much. So at least for another like 2 or 3 weeks, because this motherfucker, he could you know, if his heating pad ain't on all the time and all this shit, like then fucking he could die. And actually it was 2 kittens. One of them did die. Like fucking so I gotta be very vigilant and not let my little Silver. Cakes? Let me see if I can do a little Silver cameo. Let me get Silver. Oh, you're gonna get a Silver cameo for this is the world premiere. Actually, I already made a video of Little Silver when he was a little shriveled mess. Pass him. Look at it. Look at this little fucking bird. Say hi, Silver. And he loves me. Say hi. Say hi, Silver. Silver. He's extremely cute. Hey, you can take him. Say bye, Silver. Silver. Yeah, so you guys got some bonus footage. But let me take off. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. With that, I'm out. Peace.